Unlike many of my colleagues who blocked the doors yesterday to the Federal Reserve and put their bodies on the line, I was actually not planning to be arrested. I simply grabbed a bullhorn and I contextualized where we were as a number of our colleagues were getting arrested, and I called out the Fed for its responsibility to regulate climate risk as financial risk, and also the responsibility of our elected officials, especially Democrats and financial regulators, and their utter failure in this time of crisis. And the police told me that I could not use a bullhorn, in spite of the fact that we were all using bullhorns, and that if I continued on speaking out, that they would arrest me. And I continued on speaking out because it's important. And then they proceeded to arrest me. So it came as a surprise, but at the same time, it's what, we're really trying to bring the urgency of the crisis to the folks who are responsible for it. And the Fed is really failing in its role, not just its role, but really its duty and responsibility to make sure that banks are no longer financing new fossil fuel infrastructure.
I'd like to bring Renata Pumarol into the conversation. Renata, you participated in the protest. The recent protests have targeted financial institutions like Citibank and BlackRock. Why them?
Well, BlackRock and Citibank are one of the biggest funders of fossil fuels. Citibank is actually the second largest fossil fuel financier in the world and has poured over $333 billion into fossil fuels, and therefore are complicit in the climate chaos that we are experiencing. Your audience know that, climate chaos is not in some distant future. We are facing unprecedented heat waves and floods and fires that have killed tens of thousands of people, and it will only get worse if we do not stop the fossil fuel industry. And the only way to stop the fossil fuel industry is to stop the financing of fossil fuels. And that's why this week, hundreds of activists targeted the financiers of fossil fuels like BlackRock, like KKR, and Citibank, and today Bank of America. These are the people who are funding the pipelines that are destroying indigenous communities and threatening our water. They are the ones who are funding petrochemical facilities in Black and brown communities and causing high rates of cancer and of asthma. And they are ultimately responsible for climate change and climate chaos that is threatening our existence and are threatening, a livable future.
And could you talk about how your own relatives in Northeast Brazil are being impacted by the climate catastrophe?
So actually, I think this question is meant for Alice, who is from Brazil. I'm from Dominican Republic. No worries. I'm from Dominican Republic, though, and as you know, from the Caribbean islands are highly threatened by climate change. We have experienced stronger hurricanes. In the case of Puerto Rico, which was devastated by Hurricane Maria, and we are also facing unprecedented heat waves too. And I'll take it back to Alice to talk about Brazil and how her country has been affected.
Alice, if you could respond in Brazil.
Absolutely. I mean, as many of you know, of course, Brazil is really at the forefront in the battle to save our planet, with having the Amazon rainforest there and indigenous communities really not only fighting for their lives, but fighting for the future of our planet in protecting the Amazon, since they're all, technically considered protected lands under Brazil's constitution. So that's really the only thing that's maintaining that underdeveloped and not and decreasing the levels of deforestation now that Lula has become president. But for me personally, I'm from the northeast of Brazil, Salvador, Bahia. It's very right by the equator. It's a city that's right by the beach, and increasingly, in the winters, there's rainy season. And it always rains, but now it's just become, there's so many floods. There's my father's house recently, his roof completely collapsed. And this is really the impacts of climate change. It's something that we're used to seeing rain in Brazil, but not to this degree. And of course, It impacts everyone, but particularly the folks who are on the front lines, who are poor and don't necessarily have the means to rebuild their house or to have shelter.
Finally, Renata, this comes after 75,000 people marched. The focus was President Biden. Biden and fossil fuels, the banner across the stage. Why President Biden? We have 20 seconds.
Well, Biden, of course, is the president of the United States, the most powerful country, is also the biggest producer of oil and gas. And Biden can stop new fossil fuel projects right now and has chosen not to do so, and has chosen actually even not to attend the climate summit and commit himself to
We're going to
stop,
leave it there, but we're going to continue to cover the climate actions across